What's going on, everybody? Nick here, and in this video I got a very interesting system that I'm going to be building. It was recommended by one of my viewers. Essentially, we are going to automatically go out, scrape Indeed, compile a bunch of job listings, and then use the copy in those job listings to customize a CV or resume using AI. We're then going to take all of these and dump them into a project manager so that all somebody that might want to apply to jobs needs to do is just go down the list and copy paste. I love this sort of system so much because there's just a wealth of options here. You don't have to apply to jobs. You could tweak the same approach and apply it to like an RFP platform like Upwork, where you are scraping jobs and then drafting up a proposal or something like that for services rendered. You could do the same for leads, where you're drafting up automatic cold emails that are hyper personalized and customized to every individual lead. There are basically just 1,000,001 ways to tweak the system into something that works for you. So if this sounds like the sort of skill you want to develop, stay tuned and let's get into it. Okay, so first things first, this video was requested by the lovely user-WC8YH4GG2S. Apparently that's a guy called Mark. Thank you very much for this request, Mark. What Mark wanted was he wanted a similar automation that was a little bit different. Essentially, he wanted, excuse me, he wanted a method where we could scrape a website and then customize the resume to that website just using ChatGPT. That's very straightforward, very simple, and you can do exactly that using the approach that I'm going to show you. So I figured what I would do is I would do everything that he's asking. I just swap out the website part with Indeed instead, because I think that's a lot more popular of a job application platform. The data is a lot more structured. And then I'll show you how to customize a resume, and it's actually a lot easier to customize a CV than a resume, believe it or not. So yeah, I'm going to knock this out of the park, and I'm also going to knock out a lot of people that have been requesting for information on Apify. So that's nice. Now, in terms of what we're going to need to get this done, obviously we're going to need Make.com. And I have two scenarios open here just because of a quirk of the scraping platform that we're using. The first is called Run Indeed Bulk Job Scraper, and then the second is called Get Results from Indeed Bulk Job Scraper and Customize Resume. We essentially need to split this into two parts because the very first scenario is going to be our trigger, and that's just going to turn it on. But because scrapers take an indeterminate amount of time to complete, we can't just wait for it to finish. I mean, what if the scraper takes 30 minutes? Make scenarios time out after 45, so what if it takes 46? We obviously don't want to run that risk. And so what we're doing is we're splitting into two parts, where the first make scenario is literally just like a scheduled run where, once a day or once an hour or whatever, we just give this thing a run and then let it go off to the races. And then the second scenario, we'll be watching for the completion of that. And then when it's completed, then we can actually proceed with the rest of our flow. We're also going to need Apify. Apify, as I've mentioned to you guys previously, is just like the most fantastic web scraping platform ever. I'm not sponsored or affiliated with them whatsoever. I do have an affiliate link if you guys want to sign up for Apify. I'd appreciate it. But Apify is just like the go-to source for me when I'm doing these advanced web scraping projects nowadays, simply because you can do so with proxies. It automatically handles a lot of like the load balancing and stuff that is typically a lot more difficult to do inside of Make.com. And it's just a really cool platform if you ever want to get into like programming and building out, web crawlers and that sort of thing yourself. Essentially, the way that it works is you head over to the store, and then inside of the store are a bunch of pre-built actors, which are just their term for scrapers, which I think is a little bit more marketable, if I'm honest. And then you can just select for whatever does the thing that you want. So there's a web scraper, which is a general purpose website scraper, Google Maps scraper, Google search results scraper, Instagram hashtag scraper, right? There are thousands. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to type in Indeed, and then I'm going to grab the very first result, Indeed scraper. This was created by a guy called Miss Cerise, apparently. And inside of here, you see how there are a bunch of options that we can just change to, adjust the parameters of the search. Well, this is super straightforward. I'm just going to pretend that I'm looking for, data engineer inside of the United States, specifically in San Fran. I'm looking for 10 items, and then all you need to do to get this thing going is press start. Apify gives you, I think, $5 of free credits when you sign up. So, my free usage is almost maxed out here, but yeah, it's just extremely straightforward and very good. Now, I've actually already ran this. I don't want to run this again just because of how close I am to the top there. So what I'm going to do is I'll go over to the last run that I did just to show you the type of data that you get as a result of running this. And you'll see that it's actually pretty detailed. If you go to all fields here, you get the company name on the left-hand side, and then you get a description of the job. This is what we're going to use to feed into ChatGPT. you get an external apply link. So you can actually just do like a one-click button to go to the website that it is hosted on, even if it's not hosted on Indeed, which is pretty cool. Then you can also apply directly on Indeed over here. We also have things like salary ranges, when the thing was scraped, when it was posted. There's a lot that you could do here. You could theoretically organize this in terms of priority by creating a small little algorithm for yourself that takes the high end or maybe the low end of the salary scale. Maybe it like takes the average of the two and then multiplies that by whatever the recency is, how many seconds it's been since it's posted, normalizes it to 1. Now you have a score essentially that you could use to say, holy shit, that job's really high priority. I want to apply to that as quickly as I can. A lot of cool stuff that you could do. Very, very fertile ground, I would say, for automation. And there are very few people that are looking for jobs that are doing stuff like this. So if you are looking for a job and you're doing stuff like this, I mean, they should hire you based on the premise of the fact that you're doing this alone, especially for something like data engineer. Funny if I was looking for a data scraping job and then I applied to it by scraping. That'd be pretty sick. Anywho. Okay, so this is all the data that we get. Why don't we actually like put this in a make essentially, and then I can show you guys how to customize a resume. Okay, so the very first thing we have to do is obviously create the scenario here. And what I'm gonna do is I'll go over to Apify, and then the one I'm looking for is called run an actor. This is an action, not a trigger, but that's okay. We can use the scheduling feature to trigger. I'm already connected to Apify. If I wasn't, I would need to go to add, and then I need to find my API token, which they show you how to do just on this page. But anywho, all I need to do is just go down here to emissaries Indeed-scraper. We're not gonna run it synchronously, and then input JSON, build, timeout, all that stuff. What I'm gonna do is for input JSON, I'm just gonna leave it. Build, I'm gonna leave it. Timeout, I'm gonna leave it. And then memory, I'm gonna leave it. And this will just take the default settings of whatever I've set in the actor page here. So this should take in data engineer. If it doesn't, then I'll redo it in a second. But essentially what's gonna happen when I click this button is this thing is gonna run. And then when it finishes running, we need to find a way to grab that data and then do something with it. And so just because I only have 6 cents left, and I'm very mindful of how close that is, I'm just gonna set up everything ahead of time. And then I'll run it and then show you guys what happens. In our second scenario, that's gonna be waiting for the actor to finish, we're gonna get the results from that scraper, and then we're gonna use that to customize a resume. And the module that we're looking for here is called watch actor runs. So I'm gonna give that a click. I can now create a hook, and that hook is basically going to be Indeed bulk job scraper completed. And then I can go down here and select the scraper that I want, which is the Indeed scraper. Click save. And now I basically have like a dedicated module that is just watching that scraper to see if it's running or not. I'm going to click run once here because I want to get the completed run the second that it's done. And I'm going to go back to the first scenario, and then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, first of all, let's schedule this for every day, hypothetically, and let's just say we want to run this at 10 a.m. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this. And you'll see this completed instantly, but that doesn't mean that the actor is completed instantly. That just means that the trigger completed instantly. We've gone out and we've triggered the flow, and we've received a thumbs up that the flow has now begun. If we go over here to back to Apify, you'll see that there's now an in-progress actor, an actor that's actually going out there and getting data for us. And we can see this if we go to log. We'll see that there's just information that's, it's going. Oh, actually, no, there isn't any information. Okay, yeah, so the reason why is because we need the actor information, my bad. Okay, so yeah, so earlier when I mentioned that we didn't have input JSON, we might need that. We do actually need input JSON. So I'm just going to go back, run the second scenario again, and then in order to get the JSON that you need to feed into the input module, just go over to the Apify actor page, click JSON, and then just copy everything that you have here, and then paste it over here. This is sort of ugly. I don't really like the way that this looks, so I'm just going to go to jasonformatter.org. I'm going to paste this in, and I'm going to format beautify this, and then I'm going to copy this. And in this way, I just get this nice, beautifully formatted JavaScript object notation, which just makes it really easy to see what variables I have and which ones I don't. Okay, so now I'm going to click run. I'm going to receive an instant verification that this has indeed ran. If you'll see, the second scenario has not completed yet because the run is actually just in progress. So if I go back to the Indeed scraper and show you what I was trying to show you before, there's 4 runs now. One of them is now initializing the crawler, and we needed to supply those details in order to get this thing running. This usually takes anywhere from, 30 seconds to maybe 2 or 3 minutes, depending on the bulk amount of data that you are scraping. If you go back to the input here and you check the parameters I provided, I set the max items to 10, so it's really only looking for 10 Indeed jobs. That's probably probably quite fast. But if you wanted to get like 100 or something, it would probably take you a little bit longer, just because there's rate limits involved. There's a lot of stuff involved. Okay, anyway, you see now that this is completed. And so if I go over here to, well, it's not completed, sorry, it's 7 out of 10. Now it's 8 out of 10. You know, it uses rate limiting and stuff like that, so it doesn't pick them all up instantly. But this is good because it makes the flow a lot more sustainable. Okay, 9, and now that's 10 out of 10. So if we go back to the second scenario here, now that it's completed its obligations, it's going to wind down. We're going to get a completed little bubble. If I click on this, you'll see that there's a bunch of information here, and it's basically telling us the status of this, which is succeeded. What we need to do now is we need to feed in the default data set ID, which is over here. And then we need to make an additional request to Apify to basically show us the data that was scraped. So that's pretty interesting that they split it into 2 parts like this, but there is a lot of reason for that, and that's because they want to minimize computational load wherever possible. Some people don't actually need to see the data. You know, there's no reason to bundle a bunch of data into a request if you don't have to, so that's sort of what they're doing here. All I'm doing now is I'm actually hard coding in the dataset ID from the previous run, because now I'm just going to test this and I'm going to make sure that this gets the data that I want. Eventually, I'll replace this with the actual dataset ID, a default dataset ID variable. But because I'm just testing, I'm trying to do this quickly, I don't want to have to run this scenario over and over and over and over again every single time. I'm just putting it in hard coded. Then I'm right clicking, pressing run, and then I'm getting all of the data that I wanted. So I get the description, which is the most important part. And then, yeah, I get everything I need, which is quite nice. We have the salary, we have everything else. So now we are actually good to customize a resume. It's about as simple as that. In terms of the actual resume customization part, I have drafted up a little Google Doc resume here called Max Davis Resume. Max Davis is a highly skilled data engineer with 4 years of experience in developing implementation and optimization of data plumbing and ETL processes. Whatever the hell that means. Doesn't really matter to us. But what does is I've added a couple sections here like relevant highlights. And then I'm down at the bottom, skills and competencies. And the idea here is that AI is going to customize the hell out of those to make it really relevant to every particular job. We're also going to get AI to customize this part, of course, and you know, the job work experience as well. But these two, I want to say, the relevant highlights and the skills and competencies, these are probably the most relevant because they allow us to like pitch Max's work experience in a way that is most befitting to that particular job. Of course, keep in mind that AI hallucinates from time to time, so some of the things that it is going to come up with may or may not actually be factually accurate. But you know, I leave that up to you guys to worry about. You know, if you guys want it to be more factually accurate, then you can do some prompt engineering to add some additional steps here, where maybe you tell it all of the skills that you have, and then have it to mix and match and choose skills to put on your resume. Anywho, I'll show you what it looks like in practice. So now that we have those data set items, what we need to do is we need to create an OpenAI module, and this OpenAI module is going to create a completion. What we're going to do is we're going to feed in an example of this resume, and I'm going to do it in a pretty smart way. Oh, I think GPT-4o just came out, right? Yeah, that's their new system, which is presumably better. And what I'm going to do is I've actually already created a little test here. So I know more or less what I want the prompt to be, so I'm just going to copy this from this previous module. I always do a system and then a user prompt and then a bunch of user assistant examples. This time I'm just going to generate the examples using AI since I already know that they're pretty good. So that's my system prompt, which tells the system more or less what it identifies as. And then the next is going to be, below is a resume and job post. I'm going to say customize the resume to the job post, keep the places work the same, but modify everything else in the resume to match the job post requested skills and qualifications. Pretty straightforward, right? We'll say write the new resume in Markdown ATX format. This is a little hack that I'm using, and I'll show you why I'm using this hack in a second. Next thing is I'm going to, let's see here. I think I already had it generated a thing in Markdown. Yeah, I did right over here, which is quite nice. I'm not going to go certifications. Oh, I don't know what happened here. And then I have an example of this here, so I'm just going to copy this resume. I'll say resume. Let's do this. Paste this resume in. And then I'll go job post. And then what I'm going to do is For this, let me actually grab a real job post, and then we'll just use this as the example. This looks nice. And then we'll have this run once. And then for max tokens, I'm just going to go 4096. And then temperature, I'll go 0.7. And then frequency penalty, presence penalty, I won't do any of that. And we're just going to output it as raw text. We're going to see what happens. Again, I'm hard coding the data here. It's not new data. And so because I'm hard coding it, I can actually just click on this and then click run. So we'll give this a quick try. And you'll see why I'm using Markdown format in a second, because we need to turn this into a Google Doc. The second that it's a Google Doc, we can do a lot more with it. Like you could save it as a PDF. If these platforms require PDFs, you could do more or less anything you want. Okay, just gave it a quick run. If I look at the result here, I have this resume here, and you'll see that it's been tailored to the specific job. It's no longer like data engineer, it's data loss prevention DLP analyst, which is quite nice. There's this relevant highlight section, which obviously is now specific towards data loss prevention. And then you'll see that the jobs themselves, like the work experience, hasn't changed, which is what we wanted. All that's done is essentially we've had the AI shift a couple of the words around and provide more of an emphasis on the data loss prevention side of things rather than the data engineering side of things. So that's pretty cool. The good news about this is in a format now that we can literally just directly copy and paste and turn into a Google Doc really, really quickly. Now Markdown is just like it's just another format. What we need to do is we need to put this into a Google Doc. So let me show you what'll happen if we just try and pump this into a Google Doc immediately. If we create a document, and then if we paste in this content, and let's just call this Max Davis resume. The document location I'm going to save, I'm just going to do the index, so that's just the backslash. If we just run this, and then if I grab the WebView link and I open this in a new tab, you'll see that this looks kind of ugly. Ideally what we'd want is we'd want all of the headers, all of the sections that have just one number sign. We want these to be maybe like heading 1. And then we want everything with like 2 number signs to be heading 2, 3 number signs to be heading 3, that sort of thing. And then we want to remove these. That's basically what Markdown allows us to do, which is really cool. It's just a compressed like language. It's technically a markup language, which allows certain parsers to turn this into, nicely formatted headings and that sort of thing. So what we need to do now is we need to basically convert Markdown into HTML. And then by doing this, we're going to feed the HTML into the Google Doc, and then HTML is something that Google Doc understands, which is quite nice. So what I'm going to do here is I'll feed in this whole resume here, and then I'll show you what it looks like. You'll see the output of this Markdown HTML module. It now has a bunch of H1s and Ps and all that stuff. And if I copy all of this into the Google Doc module instead, and I run this, the output of this module is now going to be basically beautifully formatted, and it's going to be ready for us to use in, an actual resume format. You see how the headings are all beautiful, the job titles are nicely spaced out and formatted, we have bullet points, we have all that stuff. So this looks pretty good to me. I might shoot a couple of like training examples in this flow. If I were to do that, I would use the output that I just generated as 1. So let's, let me see. I'm gonna give it just one example of training. I'm gonna say this is the, oops, that's actually really ugly. There you go, that's much better. I'm gonna go to user again, and then what I'm gonna do is I'll go resume. Actually, let's just copy all of this. And then I'm gonna replace this job post section with an actual job post, which I'll get if I go to description. So this is our basic resume template here in Markdown. And then we're going to turn this into, yeah, that looks good. And we've given it one example of what we want it to do, which is quite nice. There was one line here that I didn't like. I think it was all the way down at the bottom. Let me see. Yeah, the fact that there's that additional line, I didn't really like that. So let's just remove this. Okay, and it should be pretty good now. What I'm going to do here is, now that this is all done, I'm actually just going to like go through from end to beginning, and then I'm just going to fill in the actual variables that I want. So in the Google Doc module, I want the Markdown to HTML output. In the Markdown module, I want the GPT-4 output. In GPT-4, I think we just made the edit, right? Yeah, we got the job post coming in. In Apify, we're looking at this dataset ID. So I'm gonna go find the default dataset ID. And then this should be good because we're just waiting for the results. Awesome. Okay, now that I have a Google Doc, the last step that I want is, basically what I want in this flow is I just want to dump all these results into a Google Sheet, and then I want the Google Sheet to populate with like a link to the Indeed job post, so somebody can just click once and then, you know, use the Google Doc or whatever to automatically apply. I think that would just be a very straightforward way of doing it. You can apply automatically to Indeed using Apify. It's totally against all of their terms and services, and to be real, I wouldn't really recommend it. I think there's just way too much reputational risk on the line if you're applying to jobs completely automatically like that. But you can certainly do it. You would just need to build a custom scraper in Apify, which is sort of beyond the extent of this video. But anyway, what I'm going to do in order to dump this into Google Sheets is I'm going to add another Google Sheet module. I'm just going to call add a row, and then I'm going to just create a new Google Sheet. I need to create this in, oh, that's annoying. I need to create this in this account because that's where all of my important Google Sheets are held, supposedly. And we're just going to call this Indeed Jobs. Now, if you think about it, there are a bunch of columns I'm going to want here. I'm going to go to this Google Doc and let's just see. I'm going to want basically all of these. So I'm going to want the position name first and foremost, then the salary. I'm going to want the job type. I want the company, location, rating, reviews count, URL. I might want a job description, I don't know. And then I'm going to want a link to the Google Doc as well. So that's what I'm going to need. So I'm just going to go through here and add all these as headers. The very first thing I'm going to want is position name. So I'm just going to go position name, and I'm not going to do the camel case variable format. I'm just going to use capitals. We'll go job type, company, location, rating, reviews. I don't know if rating is really relevant. Doesn't look like we got anything from there, so let's not worry about that. Let's just go to description. We'll go URL. And then we'll go Google Doc, or maybe we'll go customized resume. That's what we'll do. And then what I always like to do for stuff like this is always, regardless of what sort of data I'm doing, I'll always just go like date created. And this just gives you a ton more freedom to sort the field however you want. Sorry, sort the Google Doc however you want. And we'll just be able to feed in scraped at for date created. Actually, why don't we feed in posted at too? We'll go posted at, and then here we'll go scraped at. Okay, and I'm just selecting all and then double clicking on this just to space all of the columns out because I don't really like when they're super close together. I also like bolding the headers of all of my Google Docs. I think that's just like a very simple way of showing what the important data is. And then I'm just a huge whore for a certain font called Inter, so I will always just choose Inter regardless. Just my OCD talking. In the top right hand corner, you can then share this. I'm just going to share this to anybody with the link. I'm going to click editor here. And now that we've set this up, we can go to our make scenario, and then we can actually select the exact spreadsheet that we want, which will just be called Indeed Jobs. Because we've added in all of our headers, these headers will now be available to us. And we can just go and map through the data that we've produced before. So position name will be here. Posted at will be here. Scraped at will be here. Salary, I believe it's going to be a range. Job type. Company. Location, description, and then last but not least, URL to apply. That'll be this one right here. And then customized resume, we're going to use this web view link. That's what we're going to dump in. Okay, we are now good to actually test this out and see how it works. Now, for the purposes of speed, I'm only going to test this out on 3. I'm not going to go any more than that. I just want to make sure I don't get like rate limited because I only have 6 cents left on Apify. We're going to run this once, And then I'm now also going to click run once on the back end. And now we just have to wait and see what happens on the Apify side of things. I'm gonna go back to Indeed Scraper, click on runs. We'll see that the current run is now initialized in the crawler. Go to all fields here, and we are gonna sit and wait patiently until our data populates. I'm pretty excited because if you think about it, normally it takes anywhere from, I don't know, like 3 minutes to maybe 10 minutes to customize a resume to a specific job post. This system allows us to do that basically instantaneously for like 2 cents. And in addition to taking 2 cents and occurring instantaneously, you don't have to like muck around in Google Docs and then, I don't know, like screw around with formatting or anything, because the Markdown to HTML modules just does all that for you. The end result is you get like a very standard looking, or maybe not standard looking, but you get a very like clean looking resume. But it's very high quality, which I like. Now you'll see that everything after this module is running more than once. So this is 1, this is now on its second run. Everything here will be on second, and then it'll go on third. The reason why is if you click this little bubble, we're just outputting multiple bundles. And anytime that a module outputs multiple bundles, this just tells all other future modules that, hey, for every bundle, we want you to run at least once. So that's what's happening here. If we go back to our Google Sheet here, you'll see that this is pretty spread out. And I think the reason why is because I didn't wrap the rows. That's okay. I also see that everything is bolded, so I'm just going to unbold everything here. And then why don't I just like standardize the heights of these? Nope, too small. That looks pretty good. And then we'll just make the descriptions a little bigger, URL to apply a little bigger, customize revenue a little bigger. So you'll see that the job descriptions were pumped in directly. So that's nice. Nuna, Discord, and it looks like King.com. No way, it's just called King.com. Dude, what the hell is King.com? No way, it's Candy Crush. That's hilarious. There's the URL to apply over here. We can just click this one button, and then we'll be taken to a page where we can just click Apply Now. And then, probably most importantly, our customized resumes, which I've just named Max Davis Resume for all of these. But these are now custom tailored to the particular job. You know, the job role here is Senior Data Engineer, and the job role that we are supposedly geared towards now is Senior Data Engineer. There's a bunch of data, senior data engineering specific stuff that is now under relevant highlights. If we go down to this one, guarantee you this is going to be about lead software engineer, software engineering leader. So, I mean, it's smart enough to even rephrase it, so it's not the exact same thing. And you'll see that the skills and competencies, the education, it even added a technologies used section because that's probably something that the job specifically asked for. So yeah, pretty cut and dry sort of system. Off the top of my head, if I were to try and improve this flow, I would do a couple of things. The first is I would generate a resume, not just in Google Doc format, but I'd also convert it to PDF, because a lot of these job websites, for whatever freaking reason, they want a PDF version of your resume and they also want a Google Doc version of your resume. So I do that, and then I'd have a column called PDF resume that you could just copy and paste in much faster. I would probably do most of this in Airtable, just because I think the UI and UX of Airtable is a little nicer, but it also costs like $30 a month or something like that for what we need it for. So it's not hyper relevant. It just makes it easier if you ever wanted to like design a front end to this later or do little tweaks like that. I might pull in some more data, and I might use Google Sheets filtering in order to show me only jobs that match my salary criteria. And I might add like a priority field, and I'd use a formula to take the date that the job was posted, and then I would calculate the distance between the date that the job was posted and then the current date. So maybe I get some representation in seconds, and then I'd divide the salary by that, so that the longer it has been since the job has been posted, the smaller the priority score would be. And then what I do is I just have a filter that automatically sorts the Google Sheet based off that priority, so that, if I only have time to apply to 15 or 20 jobs a day, let's say, I can do so just by going through the top 15 or 20 on the priority list, as opposed to having to muck around and not really know which jobs are the biggest bang for my buck. That's what I would do to make this even better, but I think that I've given you all the tools that you need to go out there and make a really kick-ass system by yourself. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. That's it from me. If you guys have any questions about system, this one, or systems like it, feel free to drop a comment down below. As you can see, I sourced this directly from one of my viewers, so if you guys want me to build something like this, or maybe something completely different in the future, then also leave a comment down below. As I mentioned a couple times now, I'm starting a community. I'm launching that very quickly. It's just been difficult to, you know, compile all of the templates and the blueprints and just all of the stuff that I've done over the course of the last 2 or 3 months, honestly, into one centralized place. If you guys are looking forward to that, then let me know down below as well. Really appreciate you guys watching this. Like, subscribe, do all that fun YouTube stuff. I'll catch you on the next video. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.